Hello, and welcome back to Tarajio Talks, where we share stories of hope, healing, and breast cancer awareness. My name is Viola Kiondo, breast cancer warrior and advocate, and I am the voice behind Tarajio Talks. I'm so glad you're here for episode 4 because today we're talking about the burden of cancer, not just the disease itself, but everything that comes with it. When people hear the word cancer, they often think about hospitals, about chemotherapy, about surgery or medication, and some even just think about death. But cancer affects every part of a person's life. It touches the body, the mind, the emotions, relationships, work, finances, and even the faith. And so today I'd like us to look at cancer from a holistic perspective because it is more than just a medical diagnosis. With regards to the physical burden, cancer changes the body in ways we may never expect. There is the illness itself, but then there is also the impact of treatment, the side effects of treatment, the fatigue, the pain, the surgery, the hair loss, the changes in appetite, sleep disturbances, and even reduced strength. And so for many people, they're usually surprised by how long recovery can take, even after treatment has ended. It takes a long while, for your body to just get back to how it was before, you were diagnosed with cancer. And for many, that can really be very burdensome because people usually just want to go back to the default setting of how their bodies were before they fell ill. But then the treatment really does take a toll on the body physically. And so it's important to know that and to appreciate that the whole recovery process is a day-to-day thing and that it is gradual. It is not just instantaneous. Healing is often a gradual process. So it's important that if you're going through treatment and recovery, it's important that you extend yourself grace and that you extend yourself the knowledge of allowing your body to just reset itself given the amount of time that it requires to do that. Emotionally, cancer brings emotions that can be very difficult to put into words. Many times you feel feelings that you're not really able, to explain. There's also the fear of the unknown. There's anxiety about the treatment and what it is doing to your body. Sometimes you feel sadness. You can get frustrated, and you can also just be uncertain about the future. There are moments when a person wonders, so will I ever recover? Will the cancer recur? Will my family be okay? Will life ever feel normal again? What is normal even, So there are all these things that, emotionally, they can be very, very triggering. They can be very worrisome. But it's important to know that these feelings are real and that you are valid to feel them. But it is also important to acknowledge them rather than hide them. And where you need help channeling and processing them, it's important to reach out to people, reach out to professionals, and just talk about them so that then you're able to develop coping mechanisms that can help you be emotionally healthy so that you're able to tackle your treatment and your recovery better. On the family, cancer rarely just affects one person. Yes, it may be you who has been diagnosed, but then it affects the entire family. Family members end up becoming caregivers in some cases. Children worry when they see you dealing with, the illness itself, going through treatment, and even in the recovery process. Spouses take on new responsibilities that they did not prior to your illness, and loved ones often experience their own emotional struggles. So caregivers also need support because they carry responsibilities that can be physically and emotionally demanding while trying to remain strong for someone they love. So it's important to check in on your caregiver. It's important to share with them how you're feeling. It's important to applaud them, for the things they do for you. And it's important also for you to acknowledge that they are also dealing with something heavy, even when they're trying to remain strong for you. The financial burden is one of the biggest challenges that many families face when facing cancer. From medical consultations to lab tests to imaging, medication, surgery and chemotherapy, right to radiotherapy, transport to treatment centers, accommodation when traveling, and time away from work can all generate significant financial pressure on somebody who's dealing with cancer. And even with health insurance, there may still be expenses that families need to cover because there are so many other secondary expenses that just come with dealing with cancer. And so, in the ideal situation, no one should ever have to choose between receiving treatment and meeting basic household needs, because it affects the way you're able, to handle the illness. And so it's important for government, for organizations that are out there to support people going through cancer, to boost their efforts, to think up new ways in which they're able to, support families that are dealing with this very heavy financial burden, so that then as somebody going through treatment, you're just able to focus your attention, on treatment and recovery. Socially, cancer can also affect relationships. Some relationships become stronger during the time you're fighting cancer, while others fade away. Being cancer ghosted is real. There are people who just keep off, once they find out that you're unwell. And it can be very sad, when this happens to you, because I think your default setting is for you to expect people to be there for you. But in some cases, the reality is that, it affects people differently. And so there are those relationships that will fade away. And sometimes people just don't know what to say or even just how to help. I remember for me, two of my very close friends, Ziada and Dali, for like close to a month, they were unable to speak to me, Dali would just cry anytime, my name came up, she would cry. And Ziada wasn't able to speak to me on the phone. And it was very difficult for them to process this. And so it's important to know that relationships and people are affected differently when they learn that you're dealing with cancer. And it's important to allow people to process your diagnosis in their own way and in their own time, because the things they feel are valid. Where friendships fade, it's important to just learn to go with the flow and let go, and don't question, and just, thank God and thank God and the people who still stick around for you, even during the time that you're dealing with cancer. Some patients experience stigma or misunderstanding, while others may withdraw from social activities entirely because of fatigue or changes in appearance. So it's important to know that the social burden that cancer brings along with it is something that is real. When somebody withdraws, it's important to understand it may not be intentional, because it takes a toll, on the individual. And sometimes people just feel, they're not confident with the changes in their appearance, and they might just want to take a back seat and not be out there. So it's important that people understand this and they're able to help, their loved ones or their friends or anyone who's dealing with cancer develop coping mechanisms for their social life. Simple acts of kindness like a phone call, a visit, or an encouraging message can make a meaningful difference for people that are dealing with cancer. And so it's important that in one way or the other, you're able to just extend, kindness, courtesy, and just support to anyone who might be dealing with cancer. Spiritually, for many people, cancer raises profound questions. Why did this happen to me? What does the future hold for me? Where do I find hope in the midst of all this? For me, faith became an anchor because it gave me hope. It didn't remove every challenge, but it gave me strength to keep moving forward one day at a time. It is in the valley of cancer that I experienced my most profound faith moments. I experienced many miracles, both big and small, and I thank God for that. So whether through prayer, worship, reading scripture, or the support of a faith community, many people are able to find comfort and resilience in their spiritual lives. The community has a big role to play for people who are dealing with cancer, because cancer should never be viewed as an individual's burden alone. Communities can make a difference by encouraging early screening and creating awareness, by supporting patients and caregivers, by challenging myths and stigma, because there's so many myths out there, and there are people who are also very insensitive to people going through cancer. And so it's important that these are challenged and that the right information is put out there to help people deal with cancer better. Communities can also help by donating to organizations that provide practical assistance and by also creating environments where people feel safe to ask for help. Support can be practical, it can be emotional, or simply even just the willingness to listen to somebody going through cancer. And so our message of hope today is that although cancer brings many burdens, it does not take away a person's worth, it doesn't take away their purpose, or it doesn't take away their ability to make a difference. Many survivors go on to encourage others, to advocate for awareness, and remind those newly diagnosed that they are not walking the journey alone. Every act of compassion, whether from family, from friends, from healthcare professionals, or the wider community, helps in a big way to lighten the burden. And so in our closing today, we'd just like to thank you for joining us again on Tarajio Talks. And if this episode has helped you to understand the cancer journey better, please like, subscribe, and share our channel and our messages, because every share helps to spread awareness, it helps to reduce stigma, and it also just helps to remind someone that they are not alone. Together, through awareness, compassion, and hope, we can help ensure that no one faces cancer alone, because they do not need to. So until next time, take care of yourself, encourage someone around you, and remember, hope grows stronger when it is shared. This is Tarajio Talks, where we share stories of hope. Thank you. Till next time. Bye-bye.